Okay, so the recording is now running. So if you feel like starting, Joshua, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Pavel. Thank you. Good to see all of you. Happy you want to spend a Wednesday evening in my company, or in the company of Jamaica and the Hampton Estate. We're going to have some fun time together, I hope, here for the next hour or two, depending on how fresh you are and how many questions you might have when we move along. We have 4 rum to try today, but they are all high ABV. They're 57%. They are also very powerful, as we are drinking only DOK or high ester rum. So we're going to talk a lot about esters. We're going to talk a lot about Jamaica. We're going to talk a lot about the Hampton Estate. Everything will be in English, as you might have noticed. But, if you have any specific questions and we get a little bit too technical, then I'm sure Pavel can jump in and do some translation for us if needed. If you have any questions during the way, put them in the chat or unmute yourself and just ask them as we go along. We don't have a huge group here, so I don't think it'll be a problem if you want to say it out loud so that everybody can hear it, and then we'll do it like that. Otherwise, I have planned a small presentation, so I'm going to be sharing my screen in a minute, and I'm going to try and take you on a trip to Jamaica. I put in quite a lot of pictures, so maybe we can even get the feeling that we are there, even though right now in Denmark I have gray skies and 4 degrees. So it is a little bit difficult, but I have rum to keep me warm, so that helps a little bit. I'm just missing the sunshine. Good, but I am going to try and share. Let's see what happens. Okay. I'm not an expert in this, so let's try this first. Now, can you see my presentation?
Yes.
And is it filling the full screen?
Yes, it is.
Good. I'm not used to presenting on Google, so I had to be sure. But yes, guys, welcome. My name is Joshua. I am one of the owners and founders of a Danish company called 1423, and we are a rum company. Today, we're only going to be speaking about one of our brands, the S.B.S. or Single Barrel Selection. And specifically, we're going to talk about a release that we did last year, where we took a special rum from Hampton in Jamaica, put it into 4 different casks, left it for about 2.5 years, and then we bottled them all at 57%. We used here 4 different kinds of casks. We used American white oak in virgin oak. We used Oloroso, ruby port, and PX sherry. It is basically an experiment to see what happens with the rum when we put it inside of different oak and try and work a little bit with ex casks, so casks that have been used for something previously. We're going to try all 4. I hope you're going to like them. They are quite different from each other, even though they are related by blood, you could say. They are family related. Me and Pavel have shared them before as well and had quite a few of them together, but I hope you're going to enjoy it. So the Jamaican flag, if you don't already know it, but most importantly, Jamaica. So I checked on Google. I had a little bit of help to see how far it actually is. And if I take the distance from around the way where Hampton is located and all the way to Bratislava, we come in at 8,810 kilometers if we could go there directly as the bird flies. We are the largest English-speaking island in the Caribbean. but the larger islands are, of course, Cuba, just to the north of us, and the island of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, right to the east of us. Now, but today, there are 6 distilleries in Jamaica. We are only going to be focusing on one. We're going to be focusing on the Hampton Estate. I would say for rum geeks, rum connoisseurs, or people like me who like their rum a little bit crazy, then it is probably the most famous distillery on the island. They are famous for creating what we call high congener or high ester rum. And the one we're drinking today is the highest one that they produce, at least the highest one they produce officially for export. Now, Jamaica is quite different from where we are. Here in Denmark, well, it's starting to get green, but only very, very little. I can imagine it would be the same in Slovakia. But Hampton Estate is located a little bit inland, which means you need to go by several roads to get there. Now, I've been to the Hampton Estate, I think, 4 different times. The first time was back in 2015, where actually 2 of these pictures are from. And this is kind of showing the road you need to go in order to get to the estate. So if you imagine you start out by the beach, where you're probably in an all-inclusive resort or in a family home, rental house, some travel tourist house somewhere, where you have brilliant roads as we know them from back home. But the more you get into the country, the roads become worse and worse. So at some point, the asphalt actually stops and you get onto dirt roads. And if you're very unlucky like me, you'll end up on a road, as you can see up to the far left, where actually bamboo has fallen everywhere. I remember when I got to this place in the car and we had to turn around because there was no way possible to get in there. But after a few hours of driving, you arrive to the Hampton Estate, which is located in the Trelawney Parish. You're surrounded by sugarcane everywhere. There's fields and fields of cane, and right in the middle, you have what you call like a boulevard with the palm trees, as you see in the bottom picture here. And there you find the road leading up to the estate. When you get there, this is the first thing you see. You see the big sign with the Hampton Rum Tour. And if you go in, you're usually sat down right under the tree you can see in the picture, or they place you inside of the bar, where they will welcome you, first of all, with a rum punch made from their own rum fire. Now, if you ever have the chance to go there, I would advise to be very careful. I remember on my first trip, I had first my own rum punch. Then the gentleman you see in the picture here down to the left is Ian, who was my driver. And as he didn't drink that day, he gave me his as well. And after 2, I have to say that I was I was getting drunk already. It was quite heavy. But enough of me talking about drinking. Let's all get the first one open and do the first taste. So we all have something in our glass. I already poured my first one here. Now you have 4 bottles out there. I have made like a small ranking in the way I think we should drink them. So we're going to start with the one called Virgin Oak. So if you all have that ready, then pour it in your glass. I would suggest when you drink the rum we're going to drink today, have some water nearby. They're very, very heavy, very, very powerful rum. I would also advise that if you haven't had anything alcoholic to drink right now, then start with very, very small sips. Because of the 57 ABV in all of them, you are going to feel the alcohol. So a good step is to take just a tiny sip, taste it, let it stay in your mouth for 5 to 10 seconds, let it swirl around, cover all of your mouth, then swallow it. That first step is just going to literally prepare your mouth and get it ready for what's about to come. So when you take that second sip, the third sip, the fourth sip, and everything after, it's going to be a lot easier to drink. So let's just start with saying cheers and get our first sip. Now, the first barrel we have used is virgin oak. Now, virgin oak literally means that it has never been used before. It is made from what we call American white oak. And though when we think about an oak tree, we see them in the park, we see them outside, we don't usually think about it, but there are many different kinds of oak. American white oak is primarily used in the bourbon industry, and it is used because of the flavors it impacts on the rum. American white oak have a high concentration of what is called vanillin, which gives like a vanilla flavor to the rum. It is also quite concentrated, you could say. Because it's never been used before, it also means that the wood or the oak tree has a lot of power in it. So it impacts a lot of flavor in the rum very, very quickly. That's also why you see the color you have here, that even after 2.5 years, then the color is very pronounced and it looks like something that would either have been colored with caramel or might have stayed in a cask for 12 or 15 years. So it's quite unique. But let's give it another sip. Now, I can't see you, so I can't imagine you can see me either, but I'm drinking it here and I'm enjoying it quite a lot. Now, but in order to speak about what we're drinking today, we need to understand, first of all, what is DOK and why are we drinking it today? Now, DOK are the initials, and it stands for Dermot Owen Kelly, who used to be a distiller and used to work for the Hampton Estate. He is the inventor behind the mark, you could say. DOK also signifies an ester count between 1,500 to 1,600 esters. Now, to understand esters, think about it as molecules, but they are molecules of flavors. This means that there are many, many different kinds of esters out there, and they all give different flavors. Primarily, they taste like fruit. You'll also find esters inside of fruit specifically. Now, esters can be created in many different ways, and we will find it in all of the rum that is in the market. But the levels of esters will be significantly different. So if like we take a bottle of Bacardi, we might have 5 esters. Now compare that to 1,600 and you get an idea about how much flavor we're talking about here. But then again, Bacardi, most of us in the rum industry, we call it Caribbean vodka because it's filtered, it's tasteless, and it's literally just made so when you pour in your Coke and you drink it, it tastes like Coke. But guys, out there, I can't see you, so unmute yourself. Let me know what you think about the first rum. Don't be shy.
So if no one wants to say anything for now, I think I can jump in. It's really concentrated in flavors.
Yeah.
Like really, really concentrated. And yeah, it's so fruity.
Wasn't this your favorite, Pavel, when we were in press-off last year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think this one was the one I enjoyed the most. But I'm curious to taste them all today again to see if my taste preferences changed or not.
Well, to be fair, I haven't had them since we drank them together.
Me neither.
So it has been quite a while.
Yeah.
Joshua Marek here. Hi. When you're mentioning Presho, I was actually also the other guy that met with you 1 year ago, and you poured me one from the Virgin Oak. Yeah. I'm not sure if you remember, but it was a great experience, and I love it. It tastes the same as I tasted it 1 year ago. Yeah, and it's great. I'm looking forward to the others, but Virgin is really, really nice. I love the mint aroma overall.
Yeah. That's good to hear. Very good to hear. The thing about these high ester rums and a rum like DOK, it's important to remember that rum like this was actually not made for drinking. It is literally made as flavor components. So you use it in cooking, you use it in baking, you even use things like these in the perfume industry. where they give aroma to perfume. Or you use it to bring more flavor to another rum. You could call it, it's a tool in the master blender's toolbox that he can use to give a little bit more flavor or concentration or power to another rum. It's only been, I think, a few years since we actually started drinking rum like these. When they started to become available and people found out that you could actually find it in Europe, then independent bottlers started buying it, started bottling it. And it's ever since that, it's just gone completely crazy. But this is all within the last 10 years. So it is something quite unique still.
Nobody mentioned nail polish.
Yeah. That, I think the tasting notes you can get from something like this is quite interesting. Because when you start to mention nail polish, who would ever drink that if they heard that? But then again, you try it, and it's just outstanding.
But in rums, when we say it tastes or smells like nail polish, it's usually a compliment.
It is, especially if you're a rum geek, at least.
Yeah.
I think if I gave this rum to, well, a lot of my friends or family, I would probably scare them away. And some of them have learned to drink some of these crazy rums, but a lot of them, they don't understand it yet. I always tell people it's something you have to learn to drink. And when you try it the first time, you won't understand it, and you will likely literally hate the taste. But the only way to learn it is to drink more, and then you will learn in time, and you'll learn to appreciate it. But it is very, very unique. But let's jump back into the Hampton estate. Now, as we talked about before, there are 6 distilleries here in Jamaica. The biggest one and the most famous one is, without a doubt, Appleton Estate, which is today owned by Campari and is one of the best-selling rums in the world at all. After that, we have the Worthy Park Estate, we have Hampton Estate, we have Clarendon, we have Long Pond, and then we have the New Yarmouth. Now, all of them have their own characteristics. All of them have their own special taste notes and flavors that they make. But Hampton is, without a doubt, the baby or the famous one among the rum geeks for what they are creating. The estate itself was established in 1753, making them the 3rd oldest distillery in Jamaica that is still currently living. It is owned today by the Hussey family, who have been owning the distillery for about 15 years now. Now, before that, the Hampton Distillery lived what I would call a racket life. It was changing hands many, many times between both the government and different families who owned the distillery. And it's only really come to life these past 15 years after the Husseys took over. It started with just being rum sold in bulk, meaning that they sold rum to brokers across the world. They sold rum for food production, for perfume production, things like that. But the Hussey family also introduced rum fire to the world. It quickly gained a cult following, specifically outside of Jamaica. If you actually go to Jamaica, rum fire can actually be a little bit difficult to find outside of the large supermarkets or the bars that are in the neighborhood of the distillery. But outside of Jamaica, it gained a cult following. Not only the rum fire, but also the rum that slowly made its hands into all the independent bottlers out there. They found the rum, they tried it, they bottled it, they put it on the market, and the legend about Hampton just started booming. It was booming so much that at some point, a lot of us know him. A guy called Luca from Italy, owning a company called Velier, made an agreement with Hampton to start promoting their rum, help them to do blends, bottling, design, packaging, everything, and then introduced the Hampton estate or the Hampton produced rums to the world under their own labeling. They're still, in terms of Jamaica, still a small distillery. They're still, I would almost say, craft distillery. But and for a long time, they only sold unaged rum or white rum. But for the past few years, they've started to age more and more in the distillery. They've built their own warehouses and they've expanded rather quickly. So I do believe that in the future, we are going to see quite a lot more rum coming from them. And I also hope so, because they make some amazing rum and they deserve to be out there in the world. But where does rum start? Well, it starts right here in these pictures. It starts with the sugarcane. Now, if you ever go to the Caribbean or if you ever go to Jamaica, you will see sugarcane everywhere. It is a crop that they plant in every field possible almost. And here you can literally follow its journey from the top left when they're still young sugarcane and just starting to grow, to when you go to the bottom, they become bigger, until when you go up to the top picture on the right, here the cane is already close to 3 meters high. But what happens to the cane before it comes around? Well, we're going to dig into that in a minute. But before we do that, we are going to need another glass. So we are going to start to dig in slowly into the next one, which will be the ruby port cask. So pour yourself a new glass. Make sure, as I said, to drink that small sip of water first, because it is necessary with these very, very heavy rum. If we want to taste the differences between them, then we need to clean our mouth. We need to clean our palate in between. So water first, and let's hit the next one. Now, when we do these small bottlings, we usually call them experimental sets. That's also why we bottle the small bottles. It's because we are doing some experiment. And in this case, it was an experiment with wood and the casks. So we have 4 different casks. And this time we're going to take a trip to Portugal. We're going to have a ruby port cask. So here the cask had first been filled with port wine, which is a sweet fortified wine with a very heavy sugar content. It usually comes out at about 15% alcohol. In Denmark, we have one of the biggest markets for port in the world. It's usually drunk at the winter time, especially around Christmas. It's drank with your dessert. And it tastes like, well, sugar, and I would say dark fruits, forest fruits. And yeah, I think it's delicious, but it's not to everybody's taste. But let's give it a go. Let's have a taste. And again, I'd love to hear your comments. Pavel, you are always welcome, but I'd love to hear from the rest of you. I know Pavel, he can speak to all of them, and I know he loves all of them because I've seen it in person. What do you think, guys? Do you like this one?
I think it's a little bit more sweeter than the virgin oak, at least on the nose.
Yeah.
Definitely. And very slightly, I'm sensing differences in the taste, but it's a little bit similar. But mostly, it's the aroma for me that sets them apart.
Yeah, I agree in the sense that because we have a rum that is this heavy and this much flavor, it can be difficult to separate the flavors. I completely agree. But you feel it a lot on the nose, like you said as well. There it really comes through that it is a completely different cask. And then you have that added sweetness from the port.
Yeah, and it also seems like it's milder in a taste, a little bit like a smoother.
I agree. I completely agree. And I think, well, yeah, that is a thought that it has to do with the cask as well. That the port impacts a smoothness to it, where the virgin oak, it impacts so much flavor that it leaves an expression where it's just a little bit more powerful and a little bit more rough, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
What about the rest of you guys? What do you think?
Override pineapple.
Pineapple, yeah. Good.
It seems older for me.
Good.
Personally, I like more the nose of this rum, like the first one.
Yeah.
But the taste is it's like punch into your face. So it's very tasteful. And so with Hampton, I always feel like the taste like conifer resin in it. But I like it, really I like it.
Good.
Perfect.
I'd say for me as well, when I drink these kind of rums, I usually only have one glass because they are so powerful. But one thing that I love to do with them is use them in cocktails because of that flavor they have. And I know this is an expensive bottle to just pour in a cocktail, but you don't need a lot. I would like, if I use this one, I would use 1 centiliter in a cocktail like a Mai Tai, and then combine it with a cheaper mixing rum. But you still, because it's so heavy and so flavorful, you still get that kick from the DOK, which really, really makes a difference to a cocktail. So if you like cocktails, I would really suggest that you try it, but just a little bit, because you are going to taste the difference immediately. And even better, make 2 cocktails, make one with standard rum, and then make one where you mix the standard with this one. It's going to make a huge difference. Now, speaking about DOK, of course, we need to talk about where are we creating the esters. And what you have right here in front of you is one of the places where the magic happens. This small barn or building, whatever we're going to call it, is the entrance to the fermentation house. When you walk in there, what you're going to see is what you see on your top right. It's a huge number of wooden vats, thousands of liters in capacity, all open, and this is where the fermentation happens at Hampton. It starts out with a combination of molasses, cane juice, and water. We mix in our yeast and we put it into the vats where we leave it to ferment. Now, this process in a standard rum, if we talk Bacardi again, this process can take as little as 18 hours. During that process, you will start to create alcohol when the yeast eats the sugar and turn it into alcohol. Here, the process when we're making something like DOK is taking closer to 4 weeks. And what you end up is what you see down here in the bottom. And hard to describe mix that has a very, very, very funky smell. If anybody has ever been there, they would know what I talk about. But it is very, very hard to describe the smell that is going on inside of this building. Best way to describe it is to call it funky, weird, harsh. If you're anything like me, you might say, this smells amazing, or this smells very interesting at least. But I think for normal people, they would probably say, what the hell is this? This is weird. I'm not sure I want to be drinking anything that comes out of a tank like that. But we need to remember that everything that is in this building helps to create that special Hampton flavor. It's all the bacteria in the air that helps build the Hampton flavor. Everything inside of these old wooden vats is helping to bring out that Hampton flavor. All of these wild bacteria, wild yeasts that fly around in the air, all of that bring the Hampton flavor. Now, speaking of flavor, let's jump into the Oloroso sherry cask, which is next on the list. We're stepping away from Portugal, and we're going to visit the neighboring country of Spain, where they are famous for making sherry. Now, there are many different kinds of sherry. Today, we're going to be focusing on 2 of them. We're going to be focusing on the Oloroso first, and then we're going to go to PX or Pedro Jimenez after. Now, Oloroso, or sherry in general, is a little bit similar to port in the sense that it is what we call a fortified wine. They usually come in as well as around these 15%. Now, the Oloroso is a little bit sweet, but has more dry note, and most people will say a very nutty note to it. But let's pour it, give it a swirl in the glass, and give it a taste. But again, remember, let's get a glass of water first, just to clean that palate before we jump into the next one. Now, question for you guys before we start about talking about the taste again. Have any of you ever been to Jamaica?
Unfortunately not.
No.
Not yet.
I know, Pavel, I have no doubt that it is on your bucket list to go there one day.
It is. And actually, I was talking about this trip with Vlado.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
And there might be something in the preparations.
Okay.
Nothing too concrete yet, but hopefully we can manage something together.
Of course. Well, as soon as you're ready, you let me know, and I will, of course, send you a guide on wherever to go, what to do, when to do it, and make sure that you can get into all the distilleries as well.
That would be great.
Yeah. It's a lifetime experience to go to Jamaica, in my own opinion. I remember when I went there the first time in 2015, I spent 4 weeks on the island, traveling around everywhere and visiting distilleries, drinking a lot of overproof rum with ting, which is a grapefruit soda, and just having fun. But visiting the distilleries was truly an eye-opening experience. Like I remember the first distillery I went to was Appleton, and it's huge, but it's also what I would call a tourist trap. So it's not the perfect place for a rum geek, because when you try to bring in technical questions or strange questions, then the tour guide has no idea of what to do. Now, my second distillery visit was Hampton. And at Hampton, I met Pepe, who is the estate manager and is still there today. An amazing person. I'm going to show you a picture of him a little bit later. And all of a sudden, you could get all of your questions answered. Didn't matter what you asked about. There was always an answer for it, and you always got the truth. But secondly, Hampton is like visiting a museum, because everything there literally looks and acts as it's still 300 years old. And a lot of it is that old as well. So when you walk through these very, very old buildings, you will see that things like cleaning or maintenance is not always that important. And I also think that it is important, actually, because this is the Hampton flavor. And everything around and everything in the distillery, in the environment around the fermentation, adds to that special flavor you only get when it's Hampton. Like, you can try and drink a Long Pond TECC that comes in at the same esters as the DOK, or you can try the New Yarmouth NYEWK, which also has the same amount of esters, but it is 3 completely different rum. When you try them, you can taste that, yes, they are all powerful, they're all crazy, they all have this huge amount of flavor, esters, containers, but the flavors in them are completely different from each other. And most of these rums, well, they are produced in quite similar ways, but it is the environment that makes the difference. It is what the French call terroir that makes the difference in the rum. And part of this terroir are the old Hampton buildings. It's the old wooden vats. It's the bacteria that's in the air where the estate is, where the distillery is. All of that just adds to the flavor. But guys, have you had the chance to try and sip the Oloroso cask? Let me know. What do you think?
I think it's much more or less spicy
Mm-hmm.
It's really good drinkable.
Yeah. So is it the best one yet, or is it just better than the Ruby Port? What do you think?
For me, is best so far.
Yeah, good.
It's milder than the previous one, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
But actually, I like more the Ruby cast because it was very rough.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get a little bit of that back with the PX Sherry, I'm sure. Yeah.
I agree. It's more spicy, definitely, than
Yeah.
the others, and a little bit more bitter on the tongue.
Yeah. Good. Good.
But so far, for me, Virgin Oak is the best.
Yeah. Good. Good. Well, guys, I can't see you. I don't know. Carolina, are you still out there? I saw you earlier.
Yes, Joshua, I'm here, and
Are you trying the rums as well, or are you just watching?
of course I'm trying. You can see me.
No, I can't see you when I share the screen. So I'm looking into my PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, so definitely I'm trying it. It's something new for me, I can say, and I need some time to learn how to enjoy this kind of rams. But okay, step by step. Maybe in the room place in June, I will be the professional here. But okay, I can say I had tried already 3 samples, and for me, I prefer the second one. Was
Yeah.
the best for me, maybe because it was kind of sweet, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Good. Good.
But
Good.
it was just my unprofessional opinion. So
Yeah, but I wanted to ask you specifically because in my mind, you're a little more of a beginner to this kind of rum than the rest of them.
yes,
So
right.
Yeah, that's why I really wanted to hear your thoughts on it as well.
Mhm.
Because it's like I said, these rums are, well, let's say we put a bottle of this in one of your shops in Slovakia,
Mhm.
and you let everybody who walked in taste them.
Yes.
I think 90 or 95% of the people who would try them would have a very weird look in their face and probably say, "What is this? Are we supposed to drink this? This tastes more like gasoline or something else." But it is really rum where you need to learn and get a little bit of education before you can learn to appreciate it, I think.
Of course, yes. I think you are right. 95% of people visiting our shops and trying the rooms can't like it, okay, or it's really hard for them. But there are as well more than 5% of people, yes. I don't want to say geeks like you or Pavel, but something like that, who really are looking for, yes, this type of rams and would like to, or they know how to enjoy it, yes.
Yeah.
And so we are here for them.
Well, we will get more and more geeks in time. It just takes practice. It's like
Yes.
it's like what I say at most of my tastings is that it is something you evolve into. It is something you need to learn to drink. And I always give that same comparison as with beer. That when you try your first beer as a young man and you're 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, you're sitting there drinking beers with your friends, and you all agree on how cool you are, how amazing it is to drink your first beers, and how amazing the beer tastes as well. But in reality, that first beer, you hate it. It tastes terrible. You only say it tastes good to impress your friends. But then you grow up, you drink more and more, then you start to appreciate the flavor, and you learn to love beer. And in many cases, that is the same if it's something like red wine or things like coffee. It's not something you appreciate the first time you drink it. You need to learn to drink it. And that comes with time, and sometimes just by drinking more and more and more of it, then you learn to appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can I interject? Good evening, everybody from Prague.
evening.
Hey, I don't have the samples, but I've tasted many of these before. I have a question though, Joshua, because I see that you're using European oak for this cask.
Yes.
And did you use that to offset the sweetness of the sherry, so you would have a little bit more bitterness from the European oak versus American oak?
Well, this here was a European oak cask that was first used to store Oloroso sherry, and then the rum went inside of it.
Okay.
So you do have the influence of the oak, but you have primarily the influence of the Oloroso that is left inside of the wood.
Interesting, but it must make for an interesting combination, the little bit more bitterness of the European oak versus American oak combined with the Oloroso, a different layer.
Definitely. The oak does make a difference. And we were speaking a little bit about the American oak earlier, having a lot of vanillin, giving the vanilla taste or vanilla flavor to the rum. Then oak is very different. And we've done some of these sets where the last one we did was with a rum from Worthy Park, which is another Jamaican distillery, where we played around with different oak types instead. So here we used American oak, French oak, Spanish oak, and Danish oak to try and see the flavors that the oak can give you.
Well, one thing I can compliment you on, this comes from our friends in Jamaica, when we took our DOK down there and we compared the taste of the 1-year-old DOK aged in American oak in Denmark and the 1-year-old DOK that was aged in once used bourbon barrels in Jamaica, everybody said, hands down, and these are the people at the distillery, they said that there was more character in our liquid than in theirs. So I think that these must be, the DOKs coming from S.B.S. are a very special product.
Yeah, but I completely agree that, you know, for quite a few years you've had this thing in the rum industry where you have people saying that tropical aging, so aging in Jamaica, is far superior to what we call continental aging, which would be aging here in Denmark, where I'm sitting. But the thing is that the cask has such a huge impact on the final flavor that, in my opinion, that has a lot more influence on the final outcome and the liquid we are drinking. And you see that with these bottles as well, where, you know, they are aged for 2.5 years. But if you give this to people blind, and I've tried that before with other rum geeks, and they think they're drinking rum that is 12, 15, 20 years old, but they can't taste the difference because you used a cask that has a lot more life left in them.
Absolutely. And I'm not here to promote my rum, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. But one thing I will say is there's a bottler out there, a very well-known bottler, who has more or less copied what it was that you were doing, and then we followed suit. Now they're doing it. They did it with unaged rums. Now they're doing it with young rums. And I think one of the more interesting things, and we can take this, you should take it as a compliment, and I know I do as well, is now they're contemplating as well doing virgin oak in Jamaica. Now that could be a game. That could be a game changer. But the problem there is they'll have an angel share of 10 or 12% because the oak will be so hungry.
Yeah, well, I'd say, and I'm not going to give myself any credit for that. But
you deserve it. Come on.
The team in Denmark, my colleagues, they have done some amazing jobs by picking the right casks as well. And I do believe that what we've done with virgin oak and with seasoned casks and sherry casks, port casks, a lot of people have been looking at it because we brought out rum to the market that are between 6 months and 4 years old, that are just punching way, way, way above their weight class, simply because we used better wood and better casks and spent more money on that instead of just putting it in a cask and leave it for 10 years in a warehouse. And I think a lot of people will start looking at that, and I hope they will, because quality has nothing to do with age in the end. It's about the quality of the liquid the quality of the cask, and you combine those two things, you can make magic in a very, very short time.
Absolutely. That's what I was just going to say. With the quality cask, you really don't have to wait that long. And
No.
we've seen that with our 1-year-old liquids and now with our 2-year-olds coming up. Look at that. It took over the conversation. Joshua he just left. Alrighty. Well, I hope to see everybody in Trnava. I'll be there and maybe have a chance. I know I'll see Bobsky and Pedro. I'll see you guys in Prague. And now that Joshua's back, I'll just say, Wagwan, take care, everybody. Thanks for your time and enjoy the S.B.S rums. They're absolutely fantastic. Ciao.
Look forward to it. Look forward to it. Guys, if you don't know who was speaking, that was Robert Polo. He goes to Jamaica once or twice every year, and he is Appleton's ambassador here in Europe, as well as a huge ambassador of Jamaican rum in general. So he knows what he's talking about. We've also been in Jamaica together 2 years ago. But guys, that was the Oloroso cask. Are there any questions so far?
I have a question regarding the process of the distillation. You mentioned that in order to get the flavor for the Hampden,
Yep.
it is the way they're fermenting, right?
It is part of it. If we speak about the flavor in rum, it starts much earlier, but finish the question.
Yeah, so my question is if they are if it's a wild fermentation or if it's a controlled one. If they have any kind of control on for the yeast, let's say.
Good. That depends on the product that is being made, because for every different product there's a different recipe, both in terms of how much molasses you use compared to how much cane juice compared to the yeast. But for the very high esters, it is wild yeast being used. So it is what's floating around in the air. But then you also have that difference that you might add a little bit of dunder, you might add a little bit of muck into it as well, which is going to make a huge difference. But if we talk about the rum's flavor, we need to start literally with the soil, the dirt, the earth around you, because this is where the first step of flavor comes into place. Depending on where you grow your cane, you will have different minerals in the earth that will have an impact on the flavor in your cane. The next step is the cane itself. What sort of cane is it? There are many different kinds of cane, same as there are many different kinds of apples. Then there are different kinds of cane as well. Then we start our fermentation process, and fermentation is simple. It's a derivative of sugar cane, and in this case, molasses and sugarcane juice. It's a little bit of water, it's a little bit of yeast. Then in some of the Jamaican distilleries, and Hampden is included, you also use what is called the muck pit. And a muck pit is difficult to describe. It's something you need to see, it's something you need to smell. But imagine a hole in the ground or a big tank that is standing somewhere. You fill this up with molasses, cane juice. You fill it up with dunder. Dunder is what is left in your still after your distillation, so literally a waste product. You fill that in there as well. You might take some cane, break it up, put it in there. You might take whatever fruit has fallen down from the trees in your garden and put it in there. Now, this muck pit will stand there and just develop. You will leave it. And some of these muck pits have been running for hundreds of years. And everything that flies by or walks by can fall on in and become part of the pit in time. But what happens there is you develop bacteria and you develop acids. Now this you can add inside of your fermentation to give it a kickstart. It will give the fermentation a kick in the ass and help it to create esters. Now another thing you can do, which is a Jamaican invention and was invented in the late 1800s, if I remember correctly. There was a Jamaican chemist called H.H. Cousins who developed a process that is known as the Cousins process today. Now, the customs process work in the way that if we look at the still, which we have here, which are the classic double retort, then you can, during distillation, you can add an acid into the distillation. You can add this in the retorts where you add a cane acid. Now, adding the acid here will go into combination with the alcohol immediately to create esters. And this can make your esters skyrocket. This also means that because of how you are creating these kind of high ester rum, they are uncontrollable, because you might have a recipe to begin with that states, okay, we need this amount of molasses, we need this amount of water, this amount of cane sugar juice, all of that. But what you can't control is the wild yeast. What time of the year is it? What bacteria are coming in? You can't control any of this. So you might have an idea to begin with that I'm going to be creating DOK today, but you never know where you're going to end up. That also means at Hampton Distillery, they might end up producing 1,000 esters when they do this, or they might end up producing 3,000 esters instead. Now, 3,000 esters, they are not allowed to export. They are not allowed to sell that. So in order to bring the esters down, then a lot of the distilleries that make these high ester rums, they will blend them with another rum that is low ester. So you can literally dilute the esters down to another level. But it is quite a feat. But there are many, many different ways to make the esters. And depending on the distillery, then they have different ways of doing it. Did that answer the question somewhat?
Yeah, so essentially, it's not that, like, for example, they decided we're going to make a DOK today, and we're making DOK. It really depends on the yeast, on the final product, and then they will be just measuring it to find out whether it has the mark, right? It might be lower or higher.
Yeah,
depends on the.
It does.
Fermentation.
They will start from a recipe that states this is what we're trying to make, but just because you're trying to make it doesn't necessarily mean that that is what you're going to make, because there are factors you can't control. And that is with your open fermentation, you can't control what comes inside of your fermentation. You don't know if a bird flew in there and drowned in the fermentation. You don't know if your warehouse manager, if he went missing, if he's actually become part of it. You don't know. Yeah. And there are these uncontrollable things, but that also means that you can't control the flavor 100%. Like I remember I had a tasting session a couple of years ago where we drank a high ester rum from a Jamaican distillery. I'll not mention which one this time, but what we did was we tried to drink it unaged. We drank all of them at 60%, but this was different batches. So different productions of what was supposed to be exactly the same rum. But the four we tried, they were completely different. Completely different. There were two of them where you would easily say, okay, these are very close to the same rum. This is the same family at least. But when you tried the other two, it could easily have come from a different distillery even, simply because they had developed completely different. So they had around the same amount of esters, same distillery, same mark, literally the same product, but they were still very, very different.
So if you would try to reproduce this 4 bottle selection that we are having right now in, let's say, 5 or 6 years, it's probable that the taste would be not completely, but a little bit different, right?
It would be different, for sure, 100%. And not only because the batch or the rum from that production, that is gone now. I've used all of that. So it would be from a different production. But the next thing would also be the cask, because the casks I would have in 2-3 years will also be different from the ones I just used. Cask is also a living thing. Wood is a living thing.
Yeah, so, but if you would use the same cask, let's say, same aging process, everything that you're applying, but the rum would be different
The rum would be different, and that would both be the rum that would be different, but also the cask, because it would be a different cask. It might have been made from the same kind of wood. It might have had the same kind of Oloroso sherry inside, but the wood would still be different because it's a new cask. The wood would come from a different tree, and it would have a different impact on the rum. So it would be very, very difficult to recreate the exact same experience as we have right now. That's also why we call it, S.B.S, single barrel selection. It's the barrel and the rum inside that defines the bottle we are drinking. That's also why we always number them, usually, how many bottles are there. Because if you find a bottle you like, well, make sure you get another one, because there's no guarantee you'll ever find anything that is exactly the same. You might find something that's related or that has a similar profile, but you'll never find exactly the same. That's the thing about single casks and what we're doing here. So it's always a new experience every time. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're very welcome. But yeah, come to the Rum Festival in Trnava. Then we can talk a lot more about it as well. And I'm sure we'll have some interesting bottles there. Right, Pavel?
Yeah.
Good.
By the way, I noticed that we have some new bottles from S.B.S on shop.
Yeah, you should have. Yeah. So we release S.B.S 2 times per year. So we make new ones every March and every September. There are new ones coming. And every time we make, 6 to 8 different versions. But yeah, there's always something outstanding in there, for sure. And if we're lucky, we'll have an open bottle in June in Trnava, I'm sure. Or maybe I'll have something hidden with me. If you come and ask nicely, we might find something special under the desk that you can get to try as well.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say, that last year you had some special bottles hidden under the desk. So if you guys feel like going to the Trnava Rum Fest, you definitely go to Joshua's stand, and if you talk with him nicely, you will maybe get something special.
I can confirm this, like 1 year ago in pre-show.
Yeah, we try, for the Rum Fest, we showcase always the more commercial rums, the more easy drinking rum, but we try to have a few secrets with us for the rum geeks and the rum connoisseurs, so you can try something special when you come there as well.
And if I may add something, Daniel mentioned the new release.
Yeah.
It's already on our e-shop alco90.sk, and I have a small, let's say, surprise for all of you who stay up until the end of this tasting. So keep it locked, and then I will reveal the secret.
We like secrets, so of course we're going to stay for that, Pavel. But before we can talk about secrets, we are going to jump in to the last rum of today, unfortunately. It is a 4-box, so it means there are 4 different rums. But if you bought the set for yourself, then you should have enough to do a second round after. But we're going to jump into the PX Sherry Barrel. PX stands for Pedro Jimenez, and it is probably the most popular sherry out there. It's popular because of the very, very large sugar content it has, and it's popular because of the flavors it has. It's very, very fruity, and we get some of these same forest fruit notes that we got in the port cask. But give it a try, and remember, a small wash of the mouth, a little bit of water is always appreciated before we jump into the new one, so we can taste all the flavors. Cheers. Now give it a taste, and I'd love to hear comments again about it. And I can hear all of you have gotten something to drink, because we're all becoming a little less shy. So feel free to unmute yourself and join the conversation.
I can taste some honey in it.
Yeah, good. That is for sure the sweetness of the sherry that's picking up, along with some of the floral notes. What about the rest of you guys?
I can feel just a small hint of smoke, which wasn't there in the previous rums.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe just it's just my own taste, but I feel it a little bit there.
I'll say something quickly about taste. Now, I don't usually talk much about tasting notes, because for me, tasting notes are very, very personal. If you've ever been to a wine tasting with a sommelier, then you might understand, because a sommelier, they can go crazy with tasting notes. And when they talk about that red wine or white wine we are tasting, they come with crazy notes and things you haven't even heard about sometimes. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. Other times it makes that sense, because they tell you what it tastes like, and immediately you taste exactly what they're saying, because they are the expert. And an expert will tell your head that you need to taste the same. So for me, I don't like talking about tasting notes, because it is a very personal thing, in my opinion, what you taste. And where one person might taste smoke, as you did, another person might taste leather, or they might taste wood or oak, or something completely different. So there is literally no wrong answer when it comes to tasting notes, because when we try something, our brain always tries to connect it to something familiar, something we've either tried before, smelled before, tasted before. So there is literally never a wrong answer when it comes to tasting notes. What about the rest of you? What do you think?
I think it has the second most full body of them all after virgin cask.
Yeah.
It's really, really full in flavor. A little bit of
Yeah.
woody or leathery aroma, I would say.
Yeah, good. So this is your top two. Is it better than the virgin?
I would say it's top two. First one would be virgin, and the second one is this one.
Good, good. Anybody else want to share their opinion?
For me, it's best. I like Pake's cask in most the rums. So
Yeah.
I like Pake's cask.
Good. PX cask is usually very, very popular in general. That sweet, fruity note that it adds to a spirit is usually very, very well appreciated, not only in rum, but also in other spirits like whiskey. Some of the most popular whiskey brands out there have been aged in sherry barrels, and a lot of them with the PX sherry, because of that sweet note it adds to the rum in the end as well.
And what's your favorite of those four, Joshua?
Mine. Well, that is like asking somebody to choose between their kids. When it comes to it, no, but I do have a favorite, and we actually talked about it a little bit earlier, because same as Pavel, I really, really enjoy the virgin oak. But virgin oak, in my opinion, is unique when it comes to rum. It impacts a lot of flavor very, very quick. And I really, really appreciate the flavors that come from the virgin oak. And especially when the rum is young, because in my opinion, then you get the best of both worlds. Because when you have a white rum, it has a sort of freshness to it. There's more grassy, more floral, more fruity note that can sometimes be killed if it has spent too much time in a cask. But by using virgin oak and doing a young rum, something that has not been aged for that long, then in my opinion, you really get the best of both worlds. You still get that young freshness, but you still get that very aged element as well, because the virgin oak works so quick. So for me, it is, it's truly extraordinary what it can do to a rum. And I'm surprised, to be fair, that not more people are using it. But it seems that it is spreading now from what Robert said earlier, but let's see. Good. Anybody else wants to share anything? Okay. Well, I shared a few more pictures from the Hampton Distillery. Now, the estate itself is quite big. And when you walk around the grounds, it seems like half of it is literally just old ruins, old machinery that has just been left there to die. But inside of the distillery, you also have what I would almost call the heart of the distillery, or the most interesting place to be. And it's not everybody who gets let into this room, but if you ask nicely, they will usually let you see it. And if you're very lucky, they will also let you try some of the rum in there. This is a few pictures from the Hampton Laboratory. This is where all rum distilled will in time be measured. They will test how many esters are in there. They will test the ABV, everything. And there are also a lot of different samples in there, both unaged rum, aged rum, old experiments. I remember I've been in that room several times, and these are a few of the bottles I've tried in here. But this is also where I had the experience once of trying something that had a lot more esters than the 1,600 that was allowed. And I remember my first visit there back in 2015. I tried with one of their old master blenders or master distillers, a guy called Vivian Wiston. He pulled out a special bottle that I tried at the end, where we tried a rum that was 3,500 esters. So very, very much above of what they are allowed to sell. But it's one of the most unique experiences I ever had. Now, I had quite a few rum before it, but that was still the one that really made an impression, because the amount of flavors and the effect it had on your palate, your tongue, your mouth, it felt like you went completely numb after. That you could have walked out, had a bite of a cheeseburger, and you would not be able to taste that you were eating anything. That's how unique it was. But yeah, if you ever get to go there, do ask if you can go in and see the lab and maybe try a sample from there. Here are a few more shots of the grounds. The bottom left is one of the stills that is partly outside and is one of the first things you see when you enter the distillery. Up at the top left, there is a friend of mine, a Danish guy, who's a rum geek, and we were in Jamaica at the same time, and we'd never met before, but he saw I was there, so we went to Hampton together. But the guy standing with him in the cap and the Rumfire t-shirt, that is Pepe. Now, Pepe is the estate manager. He's always there at the distillery, managing everything, managing the tours, making sure that you have a great experience. And he's also one of the most knowledgeable guys out there. He's also one of the guys Robert mentioned earlier when he said he brought samples for the distillery. I know Robert, whenever he goes there, he always brings a couple of bottles of Hampton rum that is only made for the European market. He always brings a few bottles back for him so he can try what we are having fun with up here. Finally, I wanted to show you the Hampton Great House. You might have seen in the past that is sold exclusively at the distillery and in very, very limited numbers in Europe. So this is the house that it is named for. This was the residence or the family house of the original family that established the estate back in the 1700s. Very, very rich family, of course, that owned the Hampton plantation and the Hampton sugar production, everything around it. But actually what is also interesting is that the ground floor of this house used to be, in the old days, the original warehouse for the casks. So the ground floor was actually where they stored all of the rum casks for aging before they became bigger and built warehouses. But guys, that was it. We are through my presentation. We are through the tasting. Now it's time, if you have any final questions you want to ask, any final questions about Jamaica, questions about Hampton, or questions about rum in general.
Hi, Joshua. I would like to ask you if you have, if you're preparing some other experimental sets like this. It doesn't have to be, you know, like from Hampden, or you have something from Worthy Park, for example, or Long Pond, of course.
Well, you can find that Alco 90. They should have actually. We did a Worthy Park set as well, which was the one I talked about earlier, which had been aged in different kinds of oak, where we use Danish oak, Spanish oak, French oak, and American oak. That is available in Slovakia right now, I would believe, right, Pavel?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's the set you released last year.
Yeah. And that is made with Worthy Park, specifically the mark called WPE, or Worthy Park Extra, which is the highest ester they create at Worthy Park. And completely different from what you just tried. But yes, there will be more of these sets in the future for sure. But I can't tell you when, because as we call them experimental sets, it is often when we've done an experiment, but it also has to be an experiment that went well. I don't want to bottle anything that we are not going to enjoy. So if the team here in Denmark and we find something good, then we will make more of these sets in the future. I have plenty of the small bottles available. I have the boxes. Everything is there. So when we find something that we believe fits the profile of what we're looking for, then we'll do more of them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask? What would you recommend to rum newbies that are interested in Jamaican rums? How to start within your rums?
Oh, that's very, very easy. Well, depending on the amount of money they would want to spend, I'd say try either the Worthy Park Select, which is aged between 4 to 12 years. It's 40%. It's a very easy sipping Jamaican rum that works equally well just for sipping as it does in a cocktail. And it will give you a little bit of note of that Jamaican funk and the Jamaican esters. If you want to spend a little bit more, then do the Worthy Park Single Estate Reserve, which is a slightly older blend. It's 6 to 12 years and it's 45%. But both of them are beautiful examples of pure Jamaican rum and pure 100% pot still distilled rum. So it's a very, very good place to start. And if you enjoy that, then after that, I would go to an unaged rum and do the rum bar overproof or the Worthy Park overproof. But that is something where you need to be a little bit more careful. 63% ABV, white rum, but I love drinking that myself.
Can you ask what's your favorite rum in daiquiri?
Oh,
Is it rum bar?
well, it's one of them. Let me say it like that. I have a lot. We started 2 years ago with doing under the S.B.S brand. We now do what we call S.B.S Origins.
Yeah.
Now, S.B.S Origins are all unaged rum, all white rum, all bottled at 57%. And these are all rums that we buy directly from distilleries. We put down for aging, and eventually they will become S.B.S as well. And you have such a huge variety there. I saw Dusan just mentioned the Ecuador Malacatas, which actually won a very, very big daiquiri competition last year that was organized by a Polish rum blogger who invited judges, rum geeks from all over Europe to try 60 different white rum. They were both going to try them neat, so pure, then in a daiquiri. And then it had like group levels, quarterfinals, semifinals, all of that leading up to a final. And actually, it was the Ecuador Malacatas that won as the best daiquiri rum in the end. And
Wow.
the rums we're talking about there were only what I would call high-end. There's no Bacardi, there's no Havana Club. It was all the Jamaican overproofs, it's all the Clarins from Haiti, it's all the high-end French agricole, all of those types of rums. So rum, where we talk white rum that are 40 euros or more that took place in it. He's going to do the second edition in a few months. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what the winner will be this year. I hope it's going to be another origin, but let's see. I don't know. But yeah, I would definitely choose one from there or several of them. The French Antilles is one of my own favorites. The Ecuador Malacatas is outstanding. The one I'm drinking at home right now is a new one we just released, which is S.B.S Origin Australia, which is insanely crazy rum as well, that has this note of strawberries.
French Antilles is very good, in aged version.
Yes. That specific rum we use there, which is called Grand Arôme, is one of my own favorites. That taste of vinegar, green olives, and fermented fruit. I love that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What about the rest of you guys? Any comments? Any questions? How many of you will I see in Trnava in June? Good. I look forward to that. I always love that festival. We usually always have amazing weather and great company. So I really look forward to that. And I will do a masterclass there as well. So get tickets if you want, and we'll talk more about rum.
Unfortunately, Joshua, your masterclass is already booked out.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, come find me at the stand. We'll drink some rum together anyway.
yeah.
That was quick. I didn't know that.
I heard that masterclasses like yours were sold out in a couple of minutes.
Oh, well,
Yeah, that's true.
That's a good compliment. So that's always good to hear.
So, guys, I will now stop the recording. It doesn't mean we have to finish now, but we can talk about some rum stuff, but just so that the video doesn't have 2 hours, I will stop it now. And